I came across her dating profile whilst resting beside her. She asserted it was merely a pastime. So I created one myself and ended up matching with her mother. What subsequently transpired utterly tarnished the festive season for good. Approximately 3 months passed. On a Tuesday evening around 11 p.m., I, 32-year-old chap, was reclining in bed adjacent to my partner, Alara, 29. She was, ostensibly, sleeping, her mobile phone resting on her bedside table. My own device was running low on power, so I reached for her charging lead, which necessitated picking up a phone, a perfectly routine action. The screen illuminated. No screen lock that night. And there it was, an active notification from a dating application. Ember. A new message from Ben Handsome. My insides twisted. I hadn't intended to pry, yet the application symbol was immediately visible. My mind instantly took over. I tapped it, and there was her profile. Current photographs. A profile summary. Keen for novel adventures, seeking a connection. We had been together for 3 years, cohabiting for 1. A connection. I added nothing. I simply connected my phone and lay stock still, my heart pounding furiously. The sheer nerve of it, lying right next to me. The following morning, I felt strangely composed. Too composed. I sipped my home-brewed filter coffee, its bitter flavor mirroring my disposition. When she entered the kitchen, all smiles, I simply asked, Alara, are you using Ember? She blinked, followed by that little evasive giggle. Oh, that. Right. A couple of my work colleagues were fiddling about with it. It's just for a laugh, darling. Purely for fun. You know I wouldn't actually act upon anything. A pastime. I repeated, my tone entirely devoid of emotion. Something icy coiled inside my chest. It wasn't fury. It was something cunning. So, you wouldn't be bothered if I set one up, purely for a bit of amusement. Her cheerful expression faltered. Well, if that's what you fancy, I suppose. A bit peculiar, perhaps, but fine. She gave a slightly forced shrug. Don't expect me to express approval of your profile, though. Laugh out loud. Right. That evening, following her Pilates session, I procured the Ember application. I used a separate electronic mail account. Uploaded a respectable photograph. She wasn't wrong about the generic profile statement. Stepping back into the dating scene. Let's see what life delivers. I broadened the age parameters, driven by a morbid curiosity. Left, left, left. Swipe. Hang on. Profile image. A woman in her mid-50s. A kind visage, accompanied by a fluffy feline. Name, Margot. Profile summary, newly independent. Appreciates quality vintage, lengthy strolls, and sincere dialogue. No controversies sought. Margot. Alara's mother. Alara had mentioned that her mum was rediscovering herself after separating from Alara's father. This was genuinely unexpected. A slow, rather unpleasant grin stretched across my features. Purely for a bit of amusement, I whispered, echoing Alara's previous words. Then I signified approval of the profile. It's a match. Oh, this was going to be more than just a pastime. This was a reckoning. First development. Right, so roughly a fortnight has passed. I appreciate the numerous direct messages and remarks. Some of you are just as devious as I am, and I'm grateful for that. Yes, I successfully matched with Alara's mother, Margot, 54-year-old female. I initiated the conversation on Ember, opening with a casual comment about her cat. It turns out the cat's moniker is Lady Fluffington. And Margot proved to be surprisingly approachable in conversation. We discussed companion animals and leisure pursuits. She brought up watercolor artistry. I mentioned my fermented dough culture. There were no alarming indicators from her side. She seemed genuinely amiable, perhaps a little isolated. The exchanges were superficial and light-hearted. No mention of her offspring or former partners. She had absolutely no inkling who I was. I employed the name Leo rather than my full name, Barnaby, which Alara typically used. The photographs were distinct. In the meantime, Alara's purely for amusement Ember activity persisted. The application alerts, now left visible on her. handset with growing indifference, almost, as if challenging me. One night, she even lamented that the men on the platform were either obnoxious, oddballs, or utterly tedious individuals. Perhaps it's not quite so entertaining, then. I inquired dispassionately, whilst attending to the simmering pasta. Nonsense, it's still good for a chuckle, she maintained firmly, her mobile phone clutched in her hand. Besides, it's not as if it carries any significance. The sense of entitlement was grating. The lack of respect was palpable. It wasn't simply the profile. It was her demeanor, as though she was fully entitled to this amusement, irrespective of my feelings. She even began to casually drop remarks. "Oh, Ben from Ember scaled Mount Vesuvius. Can you believe it?" She was boasting, clearly attempting to incite envy in me. One evening, she actually stated, "Darling, if you're feeling a bit apprehensive, perhaps you should focus on your own self-assurance. That's not my concern." I simply gazed at her. My self-assurance is entirely adequate. Elara, it is my forbearance for disrespect that is diminishing. She rolled her eyes. Honestly, so melodramatic. It's just a daft application. The exchange of messages with Margot proceeded. After a week of regular communication, she remarked, "Leo, you appear to be a genuinely decent gentleman. Quite invigorating." A sharp sensation registered within me, not quite remorse, more of a peculiar feeling of obligation. I wasn't precisely deceiving her in the conventional sense. I was mostly myself, Leo. My rationale was simply intricate. Then Margot mentioned, "My daughter, Elara, is around your age. A marvelous girl. But occasionally I suspect she fails to cherish what she possesses, always in pursuit of some new excitement." Internally, I thought, "Splendid, Margot." Outwardly, I offered, "People can be complex, indeed. Occasionally, they don't fully recognize the merit of things until they are imperiled." "You are extremely perceptive," she replied. "We should convene for a coffee." "My pleasure." The morning perk. Establishment in the city centre serves magnificent baked goods. Gulp. A genuine face-to-face meeting. This was accelerating more quickly than my fermented dough culture. Elara, wholly unaware, was humming tunelessly in the shower, likely contemplating her next Ember message. Her easygoing arrogance was truly astonishing. She had even begun leaving her portable computer open. The Ember conversations minimized but visible if I glanced across, almost as though she desired me to notice. I informed Margot that I would be delighted to meet. We made a provisional arrangement for the subsequent week. This wasn't just a bit of amusement any longer. This was demonstrating to Elara that conduct has repercussions, at times from unforeseen avenues. Her sense of entitlement only fueled my determination. Stay tuned. This is far from concluded. Hello, online community. Leo again. Things have progressed. Elara's self-importance reached unprecedented heights, thoroughly vindicating my long-term strategy. The coffee meeting with Margot transpired last Wednesday. I selected a secluded table at the morning perk. My heart was doing a jig. What if she recognized me? What if Elara simply strolled in? The paranoia was palpable. Margot arrived, looking just as in her photographs, fluffy neck scarf and all. She was cordial, slightly nervous, and genuinely agreeable. A latte for her, a black filter coffee for me. We chatted about books, local happenings, and her rather disastrous online Pilates class. It was pleasant, worryingly so. She didn't recognize me. Leo was a stranger. Then she started discussing Elara. She's bringing her partner, Barnaby, to Christmas, or so she claims. Margot sighed. They've been together for a while, but frankly, Leo, sometimes I do wonder. She can be quite fickle. She takes things for granted. I nodded. I believe I know the archetype. An understatement. He seems dependable. Margot continued. But she's been a little secretive lately, rather dismissive of him sometimes, as if he's merely present, reliable, dull, perhaps, in her estimation. Dull. That was my role. The dependable partner she retained whilst seeking a connection. The presumption was breathtaking. Not just the profile. She felt the need to subtly disparage me to her own mother. Margot then said, "Actually, Alara mentioned you tangentially." My blood ran cold. "Oh." She said a friend mentioned a Leo from an Ember encounter. Alara claimed he sounded frightfully old-fashioned, and all he could discuss was his fermented dough. Culture. Margot chuckled. I was surprised she'd dismiss a chap like that. I suppose the younger generation only go for the mountain scaling type now. A wave of shock hit me. To be described as frightfully old-fashioned and dull, using my dating alter ego, by the woman I was trying to expose to her own mother. The indignity was complete. My hand tightened around the coffee mug. My mind was racing. I abruptly stood up. "I must excuse myself momentarily," I said, offering an apology. I went to the washroom and sent Alara a brief message. "My dull, old-fashioned fermented dough life is now over. I'm about to become your new novel adventure. Happy Christmas." I returned to the table. Margot's smile was still in place. "I need to tell you something peculiar, Margot. My name isn't Leo. My full name is Barnaby. And your daughter, Alara, is quite right that I'm dull. But from today, I shall be unpredictable." Her face emptied, filled with confusion and dread. "And as for Christmas, Margot," I finished, "I have a feeling our family gathering this year will be quite memorable." I paid the bill and departed. Christmas was irrevocably ruined. A certain Ember application. She wondered if it might be you, given the vicinity. A fleeting observation. Margot smiled. Tiny world, isn't it? I managed a feeble grin. Microscopic. So, Alara was aware that I might be on the platform. Yet, her behavior hadn't shifted. If anything, it became more brazen. Only the night before, a charge appeared on our mutual expenditure card, typically used for household provisions, for £75. The Ember Premium subscription. She was effectively funding this amusement using our combined resources. A new ethical low. I casually queried the charge. She dismissed it with a wave of her hand. "Oh, it's just some digital game I'm trialing. In-app purchases." A blatant untruth, delivered without a flicker of hesitation. And the mean-spirited tactics continued. Neglecting domestic duties. Too occupied or stressed. Leaving the washing for me. Anticipating dinner. After a protracted meeting, which I strongly suspected were either clandestine, dates or flirting sessions. A pattern of disregard. She even inadvertently shattered a small, framed picture of us. "Flimsy," she murmured. "Clumsy me." No sincere contrition offered. Each action felt like a deliberate provocation. Back at the coffee establishment, Margot leaned forward. "Leo, you are an excellent listener. Quite revitalizing. As for Alara's Barnaby, I sincerely hope he is good to her, and she to him. She is my daughter, and I adore her, but she can be a bit demanding. Thinks the world orbits around her." I nearly choked on my coffee. The universe was practically shouting at me. Before we made to leave, Margot spoke again. "Well, this has been marvelous. Perhaps you might consider attending our Christmas Eve family gathering? It's usually just close family, but you truly feel like an old comrade. Alara and Barnaby will be present. It might be agreeable for you to socialize a little." The invitation hung suspended in the air. Christmas Eve with Alara and her mother, who knew me as Leo, her Ember confidant. The delicious, dreadful irony. My calm facade was working overtime. "Margot," I said, managing to sound suitably touched. "That's incredibly generous of you. I'd need to confirm my arrangements, but I would be thrilled to attend if I can manage it." "Splendid," she beamed. "Do let me know." I walked briskly away, my mind in a frenzy. Alara's arrogance, the deceit, the contempt, now entangling her unsuspecting mother, daring the very cosmos to erupt on Christmas Eve. Alara, in the meantime, remained blissfully and smugly oblivious. Last night, she was perusing expensive footwear on the internet. These Aurora X900 boots would make an absolutely spectacular Christmas gift, wouldn't they, Barnaby? Subtle hint, she stated. After everything, the scheme was beginning to crystallize. This Christmas would indeed be memorable, though not in the manner Alara envisaged. She imagines she's engaged in a frivolous game. She has no notion that I've rewritten the regulations. And the adjudicator has just extended an invitation to me for Christmas. Final development. Well, folks, it's accomplished. Christmas was as catastrophic as premeditated, and then some. I appreciate you all following this narrative. Some of you yearned for a confrontation, others a romantic comedy with Margot. Laugh out loud. No, what unfolded was just profoundly disordered. Christmas Eve. Margot had sent Leo a message a few days prior, confirming, utterly thrilled to have you join us. Alara, meanwhile, was a terrible nuisance of holiday entitlement, demanding her extravagant present, still those Aurora X900 footwear. Complaining about her relations, acting as if the world owed her everything. She even accidentally spilled hot beverage onto my favorite, vintage synthpop band t-shirt. Oh well, she remarked with a smirk. Guess you were due a replacement. A continuous, deliberate wearing down. I arrived at Margot's residence at 6 p.m. I was immaculately presented, clutching a respectable bottle of vintage for Leo to present. Please, do come in. From the reception room, I heard. From the living room, a familiar voice was heard. Mum, who on earth is it? Uncle Alistair, with his terrible festive pastry, then stepped into the hallway. Margot guided me through to the drawing room. There, adjacent to the fireplace, stood Alara, a goblet of vintage in her hand. Her eyes glanced over me, displaying courteous indifference. Then, they froze. The goblet halted halfway to her lips. Her visage shifted from rosy to a sickly pallor in mere moments. All the colour drained away, as though she had encountered a spectre. Barnaby, she stammered, her voice a mere whisper. Margot looked perplexed. Alara, darling, this is Leo, the friend I mentioned to you. Leo, this is my daughter, Alara. I smiled, a genial yet utterly devastating composure about me. Hello, Alara. And hello again, Margot. It appears we all know one another in some capacity. An epic silence descended. Gentle Christmas carols wafted, completely at odds with the developing tension. Alara's mouth gaped and then closed. She looked at me, then her mother, then back at me. Her plea of just for a bit of amusement wasn't holding up. Margot, bewildered. Wait, you two are acquainted? Barnaby. Alara's Barnaby. That is correct, I stated evenly. Although you know me as Leo from Ember. Margot's hand flew to her chest. Ember. Alara, what is transpiring? Alara finally found her voice, laced with pure, panicked entitlement. Mum, he's unhinged. A vile deception. He's hounding you. Hounding? I raised an eyebrow. No, Alara. I established a profile because you did. Do you recall? Just for a laugh. No great matter? So, I reasoned I might as well amuse myself, too. I looked directly at Margot. I matched with you. We had pleasant chats, enjoyed a coffee. You voiced concerns about Alara being flighty, taking her steady partner for granted. Dull was a term you thought she might employ. Margot collapsed onto the settee. Shock turned into dawning horror. You were aware. She asked me. Not initially, I replied, but swiftly afterwards. You corroborated much about how Alara perceived our relationship. Alara exploded. Incredible. You turned my own mother against me. You madman. How could you commit this atrocity, Barnaby? Then, turning to her mother, and Mum, how could you use a dating application and discuss me with a total stranger? Margot, crushed yet incensed. Alara. I was on an application because I'm unattached. That is my private affair. I confided in someone I genuinely thought was an acquaintance. You, however, were on it whilst in a 3-year relationship, and you deliberately lied, just for a bit of amusement to him. Did not disclose it to me whatsoever. It was purely for a bit of amusement. Alara shrieked, tears of fury, not regret. He is distorting everything. He's the villain. He tricked you, Mum. No, Alara, I stated calmly, as though holding up a mirror. You simply disliked the reflection. Disrespectful, dismissive, deceitful for months. You genuinely thought you could have your amusement with zero repercussions. You presumed I was dull, reliable Barnaby, who would tolerate anything. I pulled out my mobile device, the Ember Premium on our shared card. A game. The constant barbs, expecting me to just absorb it all. The dispute raged. Alara's tactics. Denial. Gaslighting. You're insecure. Victim playing. He's ruining my entire life. Attacking Margot. How could you take his side? A masterclass in entitled deflection. Her aunt and uncle arrived mid-meltdown, looking as though they wished the festive pastry would swallow them whole. Margot, after the initial shock, was unwavering. Her voice trembled but was resolute. Barnaby may have been deceptive with me. We will address that, but it does not excuse your own conduct. You lied to him. You dishonored your partnership. You sought something different whilst pretending everything was perfectly fine. Alara screamed, I despise you. I despise both of you. She snatched her coat, her costly purse, and stormed out. The door slammed shut. A framed photograph toppled from a nearby table. Christmas Eve was utterly ruined. Margot, distraught, apologized to me. I told her honestly that I didn't hold her accountable. She was a victim in this too. I didn't linger long. There was nothing left there. The aftermath. Alara, at a companion's house, bombarded me with vindictive text messages and voice. Recordings for 2 days, accusations, threats to damage my reputation, demands for an apology. Zero self-awareness, zero remorse, just pure entitlement. I simply ignored them. I packed all my belongings, terminated my lease agreement, and left her items neatly contained in boxes. Margot telephoned a few days after Christmas. She was shaken and apologized again. I told her she had nothing to apologize for. Apologize for. It was a composed, sorrowful exchange. Alara was now reprimanding her mother for siding with the opposition. Their relationship was in shreds. Alara had apparently informed her mother that I had pushed her towards the application because I was dull and uninspiring. The fossils just kept on accumulating. Margot was not convinced. As for my own Christmas Day, it was tranquil, leftover food, rather mediocre television, and a strange sense of peace. The cold calculation had vanished, leaving behind a weary emptiness, but ultimately, relief. A few weeks have now passed. I have a new, smaller abode registered solely under my name. Alara, according to a mutual acquaintance, has updated her Ember profile, fiercely autonomous and no controversy sought. No madman, please. An impressive lack of self-perception. I have blocked her. I don't feel like a champion or a scoundrel, just someone who reached his breaking point. She played an inane game. I played it more effectively. The repercussions are entirely her own making. My vindication was simply revealing her true character, not to destroy her, but to preserve myself, to refuse to be a minor detail in her amusement. Perhaps Alara will eventually comprehend. Probably not. Individuals of that disposition simply seek fresh targets. I am genuinely anticipating a quieter, drama-free new year. I might just maintain the fermented dough culture. It's certainly more rewarding, and far less likely to deceive. Thanks for perusing this. It was therapeutic. Farewell.
The central lesson is that actions have inescapable consequences. Entitlement and deception will inevitably lead to a painful public collapse. The protagonist's journey underscores the importance of self-respect. Never allow a partner to diminish your worth or treat you as a boring, reliable option while seeking excitement elsewhere. His ultimate victory was not destroying her, but saving himself and refusing to be a footnote in her selfish game. The ultimate goal should always be peace over pretense.